Hello, everyone, and welcome. I think we'll go ahead and get started. It's wonderful to be in a room full of the friends and family of Ann Porter. My name is Penny Wright. I'm the Director of Adult Programs here at the library, and the Porters moved to Southampton the same year we moved to Southampton. So we were neighbors and friends until her death. And so I'm really pleased to be here as well today. And I want to thank all of you, and particularly Liz and John, who have had this beautiful idea and allowed us to be the venue for it. We'll begin by having a few words from Susan Barron, who's here in our audience, who is a poet with 2 published works, Harmonious Coal from Groundwater Press and The Necessary Boat from Groundwater and Painted Leaf Presses.
Thank you, Penny. I'm very happy to be here to honor Ann Porter today. Ann Porter was 77 years old when I first met her. She had never given a poetry reading or published a book. My husband, the poet, Mark Cohn, and I were running the Interflow reading series in a hardware store on Columbus Avenue. Friends familiar with her poetry, including the painter, Dara Park, suggested that we invite her to read. Ann accepted and requested that Ron Padgett read with her. I asked Ann if she preferred to read first or second. She wanted to know what she should do. I told her, if you're nervous, it's better to go first. It's sort of like rock and roll. There's the opening act and the headliner. Without hesitation, Ann said, I'll go second. That first reading took place on June 7, 1988, at a podium in the front window of the hardware store. Seated in the first row were Elaine de Kooning, James Schuyler, and John Ashbery, who later wrote of Ann's poetry, quote, her suave music and utter clarity are far removed from the fashions in poetry that have come and gone within her lifetime. Her work is timeless, or in Emily Dickinson's beautiful phrase, quote, toward eternity. In 1989, Interflow, in collaboration with the Groundwater Press, published Ann's chapbook, The Birds of Passage, with a cover drawing by her late husband, Fairfield Porter, and an introduction by Mark. During this time, we began to visit Ann and her daughter Liz at their home in Southampton. We sat, chatted, and dined in their cozy kitchen with Ann's rocking chair and Fairfield's painting. Ann would tell us stories about when she and Fairfield first lived in Southampton with their 5 children, and there were chickens walking down Main Street. She was deeply involved with the Catholic Church, and her faith was central to both her life and poetry. In 1994, Zolan Press published Ann's book, In Altogether Different Language, a finalist for the National Book Award, and in 2006, her collected poems, Living Things. Her poem, For My Son Johnny, was selected for the Oxford Book of American Poetry by the editor David Lehman. When Liz married, she and her husband John Bowser invited Ann to live with them in Hampton Bays, where we continued to visit her over the next 10 years. When Ann could no longer drive, knowing I needed a car, she lent me her Toyota. She also wrote the blurb for my second book. That was Ann, selfless, generous, willing to help anybody in need. From the first time I met her, 26 years ago, her eyes remained the same. Wise, clear, direct, and piercing, her gaze unwavering. In her poem, 5 Wishes, she wrote, quote, and I would like to learn to accept my own death, to accept our dying, that strange dawn. Perhaps Ann did learn to accept it, but even though she would have been 100 years old on November 6, 2011, it is something that is still hard for me to accept. She is a great American poet and was an even greater friend. Thank you.
next year we should have a program devoted simply to stories about. This would be good. Judy Costa is on the board of the Rogers Memorial Library, and she will read a poem dedicated to him.
Good afternoon. I knew Anne from the year 2000 when I moved here full-time, and she was really remarkable. One time I spent an afternoon with her, and she spoke about a hiking situation that she had with Fairfield. I'll never forget it, and someday I'll use it in my writing. Anne Porter. Anne inspired awe, never a wish. Hard to explain why. Was it her genuine simplicity, her kindness, or insight? One felt she understood when you didn't explain. She gave, and we received. What else can one say? Second one. Anne used small words, projecting large thoughts. So Franciscan to do so. Humility, her watchword, and chance, in contrast to pride. Her goal was to go to the Lord, not live to be 100. Yet we wanted her to live on, a shining example of how we could be.
David Shapiro is a poet, a musician, and a professor. He and his wife, Lindsay, were instrumental in the publication of their first books of poetry, An Altogether Different Language and Living Things.
I'm glad that stories are not tabooed. Here are a few that I remember. And I was very lucky to know her around 1972 till today. And I once said to her, "Are there bats on this island?" Because I heard her. She said, "Well, they get in the smallest places." So I said, "What do you do?" She said, "I just pull the covers over." She was very brave. And once when I said I had a lot of bad thoughts, and she said, "St. Francis rolled in the snow." And I said, "Why?" She said, "To stop the bad thoughts." And one day I said to her, "Do you really believe in heaven?" She said, "Of course, Anne. We were built for heaven, like a boat." And with Fairfield, she could be very witty and short. And one day he was saying of an art critic, Greenberg, that he painted his own name, Green Hills. And she said, "You do that too, Fairfield." And she took care of a lot of people, but I felt that she always put herself second or third. I had read her poetry back to very, very early. And I said to her, I sort of tricked her and I said, "Have you ever put all your poems together?" And she said, "No." And I said, "You know, I'd love that as a birthday present." I sort of thought I got her there. And she said, "Oh, it'll be really good also for my grandchildren." So she put it together, and I had everyone alerted to try to publish it. It was published. It was loved by so many. I was just saying, I often go on trips, poetry trips, but sometimes somebody will be writing just like Anne, and I'll say, "You remind me of it," and the person stops me and says, "Anne Porter, my favorite poet, how much I love her." And when she was nominated for the National Book Award, they were giving a little medal for those nominated. She said, "This will be so good for my grandchild." So it was always a matter of giving. She gave away, we were at the parish church, she had given them all these amazing pictures of Fairfield, early and late. And she gave away her barn as a studio. And she gave away, that was her mode. And one day she said to me, you know, I don't know how to thank you, but if you go to this gallery, take anything you want. And, you know, they say one shouldn't call her a saint. She didn't like being called a saint. But someone said to me, you know, David, there are a lot of good Catholics. There are a lot of people doing good works. And I said, well, good works day after day. Good works all the time. A life dedicated to good works. And her poetry was so beautiful. So I'm going to read a poem that she tended to start with. And I said to her, why don't you publish this poem, St. Francis's Great Canticle? And she said, I think I was helped by other people so much, I don't believe in taking credit for it. But, of course, it is just her poem, the translation of St. Francis, and she was Franciscan. I got her poetry to the Pope. I thought, you never know, maybe she cares about it. She did. She was very pleased. We talked a lot about Judaism, so the poems I'm reading you, in a way, they all show her openness. I once wrote a poem about Jesus' love for the Magdalene, and I said, do you think I could get in trouble for this? This is wrong? She said, no. I felt that no, when Anne thought that I could do something, I thought it's like the nihil obstat. You know, you are permitted to do this. And St. Francis of Assisi is the poem that she often opened with. That, of course, is hers. Canticle of the Preachers, or the Canticle of Brother Son. Now, if I was professional, I would say, my wife is always saying, can you hear me? Back there. It's okay?
Yes.
A little more? Sometimes someone will say, I liked your poetry reading. Of course, I couldn't hear anything. Now there's that special poetry reading where the person is opening their mouth and closing it. This is one of the great poems ever written, and you know, known for its colloquialism and known for its being in a kind of not Latin. You know. Most High, all-powerful, good Lord, to you be praise, glory, honor, and all blessing. To you, Most High, do they belong, and there is no one worthy to speak your name. Be praised, my Lord, with all your creatures, especially Sir Brother Sun, who brings us day, by whom you give us light, and he is beautiful and radiant with great splendor. Of you, Most High, he is the sign. Be praised, my Lord, for our sisters, the moon and the star. In the sky you formed them, beautiful, precious, and clear. Be praised, my Lord, for brothers wind and air, cloud, calm, and all weathers, by which you give your greatness sustenance. Be praised, my Lord, for sister water, for she is useful and humble and precious and pure. Be praised, my Lord, for brother fire, by whom the night is lighted, for he is beautiful and merry and robust and strong. Be praised, my Lord, for sister earth, our mother, who sustains and governs us, and brings forth various fruits and colored flowers and herbs. Be praised, my Lord, for those who pardon for your love's sake and put up with their weakness and distress. Blessed are they who will endure in peace, for by you, Most High, they will be crowned. Be praised, my Lord, for our sister, the death of the body, from whom no one living can escape. Woe to us if we die in mortal sin, but blessed those found walking by your most holy will. Death will do them no harm. Praise and bless my Lord, and give him thanks, and serve him with deep humility. And as if to show her humility, she signs this, various translators, and Anne Porter. I think I'll stop there. There are so many poems that we could read, and but the Franciscan in her was amazing. We were built for heaven, like a boat. Thank you. Thank you, Anne.
You probably don't need reminding now, but it's good. It's a good opportunity to make sure your cell phone is on. And I have to say that my last really bad cell phone gaffe was during Ann Porter's poetry reading here 8 years ago. So, anyway. Emily Russo is a poet and professor of writing at St. Peter's University in New Jersey.
Hello. Can you guys hear me back there? So I'm going to read 4 poems selected by Sarah Porter, who is Anne's granddaughter who couldn't be here. I'm very happy to be reading for her. Looking at the sky. I never will have time. I never will have time enough to say how beautiful it is, the way the moon floats in the air, as easily and lightly as a bird. Although she is a world made all of stone, I never will have time enough to praise the way the stars hang glittering in the dark of steepest heaven, their dewy sparks, their brimming drops of light, so fresh, so clear, that when you look at them, it quenches thirst. In another world. The 20th century began a second decade when I began my life. Large patches of the former century still lay about like snow in April. Cities were quiet, though often in the night the tomcats quarreled. The sounds by day were the clip-clop of horses' feet, the chirp of sparrows, and in the alleys, rags, bones, and bottles. The ragman's cry. Lumber and coal and gravel, bricks and stones were hauled in wooden wagons by teams of slow, colossal horses. The streams were clear. The forests all around us were deep and strong, and few believed that nature could be wounded. Three birds. Song sparrows. Our sudden blissful lisping songs are quickly over, but they are long enough for us who are so small. Crows. The crows fly through the woods like heavy shadows of other birds which are themselves invisible. The song of the thrush. Inside the thrush's song there is another, a flash of dissonance that's like thin crystal breaking and ringing as it breaks. Five wishes. I'd like to have a wild bird perch on my hand, a sparrow or a chickadee, sudden with her sharp feet and fragile daring. I'd like to see again the etchings Rembrandt made of stories from the Bible. Though they're as plain as Bethlehem's hay, a radiance fills them, and I would like to visit the Laguna Indians and their old church made of whitewashed clay, with logs for rafters, and in it their Madonna to whom they've given a white lace apron. And I would like to learn to accept my death, to accept our dying, that strange dawn, so deeply scandalous that God himself wept at the death of his friend. I'd like to find the shrine of Shemayo, where the lame leave crutches. I'd like to go there with my daughter Katie. It would be enough just to be there without any miracle. Thanks.
Mark Cohen is a poet. His newest book, Unknown Sky, will be published by Sheet Meadow Press in the spring of 2015. Mark and his wife Susan gave Anne her first poetry reading at In Tupelo, a hardware store in Manhattan.
I'd like to thank Liz and John for putting together this tribute to Anne. This first poem, which Liz gave to Susan, appears to be an early poem of Anne's because it was found among the papers of the great but little-known poet John Wheelwright, who was a friend of Anne's and an influence. It's a little grittier in its imagery. It's a terrific poem. It's called Out of Chicago. There is a river of smashed ice and streets of ruined snow, where trolleys full of violence and light run loud, rocking their load of phosphorescent men. The tracks lead to the prairie, and there the ebbing city leaves a few dark houses and neon letters whose red names twitch in the drafty night. A pool room's bitter comfort shines at the intersection. Then the open fields of night pour in, full of the stillness of farmers gone to bed and of the sky's enormous journeys. Of course, the New York School of Poets had a common sensibility and common interests, but something that not everyone knows is that they were also great, great friends. As a matter of fact, all their families were friends, children, and so on and so forth. Catherine Koch, who is here, this new magazine called Fort Greene, she wrote about Kenneth Koch and the pictures that she took, I believe, when they took a family trip to visit the Borders in Maine in 1968. And it's interesting that she says, we spent some time on the island when I got to be with my best friend in the world, Anne and Fairfield's younger daughter, Lizzie. And so this poem, showing the friendship between them, is for Kenneth and his family. It's titled For Kenneth and His Family, and it seems to be written after we lost him. Kenneth, you were a most generous friend to Fairfield and to me. You gave our painting and our writing your close attention. Your mocking was warm when you made fun of us. The days when you were with us were exciting and full of laughter, for no one could be funnier than you. You taught not only your college students, but countless children in America and those in foreign schools as far as China, and the old people in their nursing homes. You somehow taught the children in that Texas hospital when you were locked up for days in a glass cage. You read your students famous poetry, but also showed them another poetry they had inside them, how they could write, or which they themselves could write. You gave them your own poetry and gave us yours. You gave us joy. You gave me some of the friends I love the best in all the world. And this poem, called The Boxwood Hedge, was published by Commonweal, a magazine that often published Anne's work. The Boxwood Hedge. 200 years ago, a schooner with a cargo of Polish swans and English boxwood bushes was bound for New York Harbor when it was shipwrecked in a storm just off Long Island. Because the cabin boy opened their cages, the 40 swans took flight into the marshes. The sapling boxwood bushes were swept ashore and up into the beach grass on the dunes, where children found them. Now 3 heads taller than the tallest man, massive and rich in shadows, the boxwood bushes are growing at a hedge around a country doctor's garden. Their little waxen leaves are of a green so deep, it's almost black, and when the sun is on them, they haunt the doctor's house with a dim, double perfume like that of fresh ground coffee and the musk of a wild mushroom. This is a heartbreakingly beautiful poem called 4 Poems in 1. At 6 o'clock this morning, I saw the rising sun resting on the ground like a boulder in the thicket back of the school, a single great ember about the height of a man. Night has gone like a sickness. The sky is pure and whole. Our Lady of Poland's spire is rosy with first light. Starlings above it shatter their dark flock. Notes of the Angelus leave their great iron cup and slowly, 3 by 3, visit the Polish gardens round about. Dahlias shaggy with frost, sheds with their leaning tools, rose bushes wrapped in burlap, skiffs upside down on trestles like dishes after supper. These are the poems I'd show you, but you're no longer alive. The cables creaked and shook, lowering the heavy box. The rented artificial grass still left exposed. That gritty gash of earth, yellow and mixed with stones, taking your body that never in this world we will see again or touch. We know little, we can tell less. But one thing I know, one thing I can tell, I will see you again in Jerusalem, which is of such beauty no matter what country you come from, you will be more at home there than ever with father or mother, than even with lover or friend. And once we're within the borders, death will hunt us in vain.
The poet Susan Barron, whom I introduced earlier, will read some selections.
Hi, I'm listening to all these beautiful poems of Anne's, and I'm missing her very much. And I'm thinking, what a beautiful day. It's beautiful outside, and a beautiful way to spend an afternoon listening to this unbelievable poetry. A Seaside Autumn. This also appeared in Commonweal. Children are back on the playground at Our Lady of Ostrobama, filling the air with a babble like that of 100 birds. Asters and goldenrod appear all over town. Whenever earth is idle, no one gets off the morning train arriving from the city. Keepers of little shops prepare to move to Florida. And there are storms of music in the sky as the wild geese fly over. Out in the swamp, the maples blaze with a seraph fire, while huge and gray as elephants, the older maples of the street secretly leaf by leaf change their green crowns to gold and let them fall. Down at the shore, beaches are empty, summer crowds have gone, the azure glittering of the sea is there alone. Mortals. Death seems appropriate for bear and snail, for dragonfly and sparrow, and every other creature, the nature of whose life it is to have an ending. It's not like that for us. Our deaths are apt to be unjust and violent. We're killed in war. We die in plague and famine. And even when our death is ordinary, it's dark with mystery and sharp with sorrow. But there are those who tell us that when life's breath has left us, our humming spirits know the way to God, as autumn swallows know the way to summer. Noel. When snow is shaken from the balsam trees and they're cut down and brought into our houses, when thickly clustered sparks of colored fire appear at night in ordinary windows, it's then we hear and sing the ancient carols. They bring us ragged miracles and hay and candles and flowering weeds of poetry that smell of pine and oranges and are all loved the more because they are so common. But every now and then, some ancient carol will carry phrases of the haunting music of another world, the truth and freshness of the heavenly kingdom, as wild and dangerous as a prophet's message, It is a world like that of children who, though they come to us from our own bodies, are altogether new, with their small limbs and high-pitched bird-like voices. They look at us with their clear eyes and ask their piercing questions that God alone can answer. And this poem was written for John and Liz, so I'm honored to be reading it. Advent Song for John and Liz. The wild geese are aloft and all the trees are bare. We're on the verge of winter and the deep hours of night when frost suffuses the air. But heaven has upland pastures whose crystal streams bring down the sheaves of winter roses, the flocks of shining angels, and the great star of morning that comes before the sun. And finally, I'd like to read from her book in altogether different language, this poem, Ticket. On the night table, beside my bed, I keep a small blue ticket. One day I found it in my pocketbook. I don't know how it got there. I don't know what it's for. On one side there's a number, 98833, and Indiana Ticket Company. And on the other side, the only thing it says is keep this ticket. I keep it carefully because I'm old, which means I'll soon be leaving for another country, where possibly some blinding, bright, enormous angel will stop me at the border and ask to see my ticket.
Joshua Fishbein is a writer and a poet, and he is one of 3 of Anne's grandsons. I mean, he is one of 3 grandsons.
Hi. I just picked these because they're 3 poems I just remembered reading as a kid. I don't know if they're my favorite, but I just have images of them always in my head. The Winged Children. Everyone hear me? Once when my friends were driving through the desert in Mexico, they passed a pickup truck, and in the back of it, each with a pair of wings of sky blue plush, such as is used for making bedroom slippers, there rode a dozen little Mexican children. For Joshua, 1 month old. Joshua, your hands and fingers are so light and small that when you fall asleep, you rest them on the air. Gravity has no hold on them and has to leave them there. A village cat. At the old Polish gardener's, there's a young cat, a calico, living half wild under the potting shed where she was born. Her face is decorated with daubs and smudges and streaks of black, as if she were made up to be a clown in some mysterious carnival. I gaze at her in wonder. She gazes back with clear golden eyes. And there's one more here that Liz picked out for me. It's good though. I liked it. The Spring of Light. In Russia, when the only sign of spring is that the days are growing longer, it's called the Spring of Light. Thanks.
Thank you. Lily Middleman is a senior at St. John the Baptist High School. She is a musician and a cello player, and is one of Anne's great nieces.
I'm actually a junior, but everyone thought I was a senior since I was a freshman, so it's okay. It's so nice to see everyone who's friends with my Aunt Anne. I'm her great niece, I think. I only knew her for a few years when we lived in Long Island, really. Those are really my memories of her from when I was 11 to 15. And she was just one of the most nice, kind, and like genuinely kind people I've ever met. I speak English. She was awesome. But I have a few poems that Liz picked out for me, but the last two are the best. This one's called Quimper Britangne, 1922. A sailor walks whistling through a street made all of stone, where there are golden circles of lichen growing on the stone. The air is full of salt. And the street opens into the cathedral square, where the white lace bonnets of the fishermen's wives are opening like stiff petals, are spread like wings. These laces were created in the smoke-clouded cottages of the fishing villages, and always the sound of the great ocean can be heard singing in their kitchen gardens. The tiny needles of the grandmothers created these white shapes that spread like wings. You must not ask to buy even a single one of them, even for a museum. You will not ask to buy one, just as you would not ask to buy a child. And this one is called Pushkin, Our Cat. I remember the cat she used to have, well, Liz still has them, but I remember her loving cats. Came to us out of nowhere, a nowhere in the woods. She's neither wild nor tame. She's beautiful, with her black velvet costume, white ruff and form, white velvet stockings. She sleeps most of the day. When she wakes up, she stretches arches, ripples, and unfurls her body with the grace of a great dancer. At times, she dashes through the house, flying from room to room like one possessed. There seems to be no reason for it. All cats are somewhat magical. Pushkin is no exception. I've seen her float up effortless into the air, alighting neatly on the top of a tall chest of drawers. There she investigates its various objects, sniffing them carefully, or rubbing a furry cheek against them. And she stops among them, so very lightly that she never topples even the smallest of the perfume bottles. This one's really cute. It's called a skip rope rhyme. Incense, outsense, upside down sense, nonsense, clown sense, yellow daisy known as old man's hat or driver's license. 1, 2, 3, 4, however many you can do. This one's called 14. I really relate with this one. In early years, they let me keep my wish that I grow up to be a circus dancer, having no duty but a spangled risk, taking the pulse of speed the whole day long, the skirt about my waist, a silver disc. Now each one offers me a primer trade, rib after rib of gray alternative, hardening the supple future, I'm afraid. But she turned out to be a pretty cool poet, so it's not that great. And this one is my favorite. It's called 18. Under this dress, my blood runs bright as gold. And how can I grow old? Pile century on century, I am a branching tree. Bursting the sky in one green festival, I have enough for all. I would be everyone, that old woman crinkling to the sun under her woolen shawl, that little child whose cheeks are wet with tears, the rabbit laying back her tender ears, the lamb with springy wool, the cricket and the flea, these I would be. Pile century on century, I am a branching tree. Let many children tear at my delight, and smooth its crumpled leaves into the sky. I'll be their depth, and they will be my height. And how could I die till they have broken free? I am a festival, a branching tree, which she was. Thank you.
Thank you. Alvin Novak is a musician, a composer, and a teacher. He met Anne in Fairfield in the late 1950s when he moved here from California, and they remained friends ever since.
poem I'm going to read is called Music. When I was a child, I once sat sobbing on the floor beside my mother's piano as she played and sang. For there was in her singing a shy yet solemn glory my smallness could not hold. And I was asked when I was crying, I had no words for it. I only shook my head and went on crying. Why is it that music, at its most beautiful, opens a wound in us, an ache, a desolation deep as a homesickness for some far-off country and half-forgotten country? I've never understood why this is so. But there's an ancient legend from the other side of the world that gives away the secret of this mysterious sorrow. For centuries, on centuries, we have been wandering, but we have made for paradise as doves for the forest. And when the music comes to us with its heavenly beauty, it brings us desolation. For when we hear it, we have to remember the lost native country. We dimly remember the fields, that fragrant wind-swept clover, the bird songs in the orchards, the wild white violets in the moss by the transparent streams. And shining at the heart of it is the longed-for beauty of the one who waits for us, who will always wait for us in those radiant meadows, yet also came to live with us, but wanders where we wander.
I'm going to fill in for Emma McWhinney, who couldn't be here today, and read one poem. Anna, you stayed in your huge frozen country. When it was filled with prisons, your only child was held in one of them. You lived as close to suffering as eagles to the sun, and out of this you made poetry. Reading your poetry, I felt ashamed of mine, till I remembered there is a way in which all poetry is one poetry, all poets one. There's Christopher consigned to Bedlam for praying in the street. There's the executive behind his office desk, secretly writing, stretching his words until they touched the edge of madness. And there's the doctor who spent half the night delivering an infant. He left the housing project just as night was fading. The street lamps all went out, and in the paling sky above the city, he saw the morning star. We have his greeting to the morning star. And then there's young Helena in the Gestapo prison scratching her prayer to Mary on the wall of her cell. 40 years later, her words were found there, shining, immortal. Whether we're whispering, chanting, or shouting, cursing, screaming, we are opposing the numbness that is our mortal enemy. Though there are times when we will sing for joy, and it's as if our poetry were gathered up and given to the earth, so that the earth may cry and sing with human voices. It is as if we were a choir, a carillon, a chorus, like birds in summer when the sun comes up. Okay. Patton Miller is an artist, and he painted out of Fairfield Porter's studio next to Anne's house for many years.
Are you about done, David? How are you? So much of my life has been connected to the Porter family. came here in '74, and pretty much I had worked in the studio for 23 years, but I was thinking about the first porter that I met was Johnny. And it happened at Little Plains Beach. And as this poem, the poem I'm reading, the first one is for my son Johnny. I read it at the Parish Art Museum, but it's so good I feel like I should read it again. But I was thinking, I was remembering the first time I saw Johnny was at Little Plains. I was surfing, and there was this very unusual and intense-looking fellow standing in absolutely the worst place you could stand, which was in front of about 10 guys surfing, and surfboards were flying all around him. And he was seeing through them all and smiling at us, and just had this real different look about his face, this very electric look. And that was Johnny, and I actually paddled to the shore, left my board in the sand, and got him away from that impact zone where he could have really been hurt. And I remember seeing Ann on the beach also. A couple years later, I ended up living next door. And I looked up and I said, that looks like a studio. And because I had always been working in garages and basements and wherever I could work, the back of trucks. And so I went next door, and I didn't think Ann knew me, but she actually reminded me years later that she remembered me from, she knew who I was from living next door, and I had a feel because everybody knew everybody, but I was new. And I didn't think she knew me, but she said, when I asked her if I could use the studio, she said yes. I'd have to wait for a little bit of time, because another painter, Antonio Ciccone, was on his way to Italy, but I got the studio, and it was the first proper studio I ever had. And if anyone here has ever tried to paint in a basement, it's not really great to walk into a hole to paint pictures. And the very first day I was in that studio, the studio was an old converted barn, had these big hayloft doors. I threw the doors open, and Johnny was at the front step of Ann's cottage, and he was, as his poem says, he was doing his war dance, which was loud, and waving his arms around. And at the same time, Antonio Ciccone had a daughter at the main house, and she was doing her war dance. And so I was listening to two war dances, and I thought, well, I've ended up in just the perfect place. I felt very much at home, and indeed I called that my home for 23 years. And you can't imagine the gratitude I have towards this family. Anyways, for my son Johnny, July 11th, 1980. The maker of worlds and the tender father of sparrows, who told us what's done to the smallest is done to him, told us also the least will be the greatest in heaven. And since it was he who told us, we know it's true. So Johnny, now you're one of the greatest, because here on earth you were certainly one of the least. You called yourself a man without money or power. You seemed only to ask to drink countless cans of soda, though it did have to be one special brand. You seemed only to ask to tell your difficult puns with a delighted smile, to friends and acquaintances and even strangers, and to stand in front of your house and rock and wave your arms and sing, varying it with hoops and growls of wild, ecstatic joy. And later to inquire of shopkeepers and policemen if they could hear you at the other end of town. You seem to ask only to spend hours in the woods and fields alone, talking to God. But you also love to go swimming, especially in thunderstorms, especially in autumn under the colored leaves. And if the leaves weren't there, you pretended they were there. You loved napping in the messy attic, with filing cabinets and old comic books, and empty cartons saying B&M baked beans. And passionately you loved the thunder, with all of its fancy sounds, in which you detected all kinds of subtleties. Did it sound like a subway train? Did it say, relinquish, relinquish? Did it shake the ground? And you loved women, most of whom you admired, quite regardless of age, and whom you hugged with great abandon, particularly the ones in flowered dresses, and the ones with curly hair, knowing you never married because a wife might be hard to please. This may have hurt. Perhaps that's why you asked to be excused from weddings, saying that they were boring. A little girl once asked you, Johnny, how does it feel to be retarded? And you answered gently, I don't know, dear, I am not retarded, which you were not. Though lightheartedly, you described your outburst of temper as just a little jump and a babyish roar. Far often are your scruples attacked you. Am I the worst person in the world? Though your shoelaces were hardly ever tied, and you seldom wore matching socks, you tried to behave with dignity in the village, so as not to embarrass my little sisters. There was a father in you too somewhere, though you never corrected other people's children. I don't want to act like a staff member. If you saw a baby in town, you'd smile, and with just the tip of one finger, you'd carefully touch the tiny hands and feet. With the child in the Christmas manger, you did the same. You told us that in heaven the angels kid and joke. Quite casually you'd mentioned seeing St. Michael the Archangel. That's who I just waved to. We couldn't see him, so we asked what he was like. And you told us, just a friendly man in a business suit. And said, next time I see an archangel, would it be all right to ask him his name? Often you visited your parish church, first splashing on much holy water. Inside the church you went down hard on both knees, and then, dropping a lot of flaming matches, you lighted almost a full row of candles to pray for the blind and deaf and crippled children. And when the church is locked, you said, I just go up to it and touch the wall. Your family sent you away to live on a farm in Vermont, and for years your times at home were so short and so far apart that hearing them once called visits, you turned white. So deep was your speechless fear that you might be only a guest at home and have no home. But in your humility, you knew how to forgive, growing kinder and kinder as you grew older. I am not afraid of dying, you said, just getting hurt. Johnny, now you're a staff member. And now you're home, and now you're with Mary, whose starry veil you love, and of whom you said, she won't get bored with my puns, and she won't mind if I touch her dress. While your mother, who sometimes did get bored with your puns, cries here on earth. And ask you, now that you're one of the greatest, to grant her a portion of your littleness. Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot to sink your teeth into. Okay, I have one more. It's called A Dream of White Satin. I've never seen this poem until a couple days ago when this sent it to me. I'd like to know when it was written. Liz, do you know?
I think in the last few years of her life.
I thought it was a late poem.
Yeah.
Okay. Someone had built a hut of cedar branches in a forest clearing. I stood beside it. It was at night, but through the darkness I could see strangers approaching. One of them was a messenger, and he came near me. I saw he wore a uniform made of white satin. He said, I've come to bring you the worst of all bad news. I wouldn't listen. Instead, I wrestled with my dream, till I could awaken to the delectable, the everyday bliss of being, the sparrows chirping in the eaves, and a cool gray morning. Thank you.
Bonnie Good is a geriatric case manager. She lives in Denver, Colorado, and is one of Ann's daughter-in-laws. Where's the folder that we put here? There was a black folder. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Sorry. And it was her crutches that came crashing to the floor.
We were trying to be so organized. Shadows on Main Street. Walking down Main Street on a sunny morning, of course I cast a shadow. A small black ant hurried along beside me. I noticed her. And though she was no bigger than a three-letter word, she too was casting a tiny, perfect shadow. You've got some nerve, I told her. You can't hear me? Not so much. Better? Better? Okay. No, not better. This is better? Okay. This is called Desert Grandchild, and this is especially dear to me because I'm the adoptive mother of Ann Porter's grandchildren. And so who would know when we were adopting 2 children that we would get a grandma too? So when my husband picked up the children, we had met them once, not a great long-term relationship, and we had never met Grammy before. And as luck would have it, I had major surgery the day he picked the children up. So we had Grammy to come and stay with us and care for us, and she became one of the dearest things in our lives. A desert grandchild. I came here late at night, and I'm lying awake on a cot in the laundry room of a house at the edge of Navajo country. For now it's a house full of sleep, with a still desert around it, and the still glory of the stars fills the black sky above it. There must be a cuckoo clock in another room somewhere. I'm counting its wooden hiccups. And now I hear a child. It must be my son's child, frightened by a dream. She's calling her foster parents. Her voice shines in the dark. A fragment. Here lie the bones of an old woman for whom life was very sweet. Down to the smallest leaf, or flash of dew, or firefly in the hedge, or night of rain and thunder. Rainbow. And there it is above us in the washed heavens, delicate miracle, frail apparition, Omega in the Lord's mysterious alphabet. It traces a salmon's leap up from the distant hills, crossing the sky and ending in a nearby pasture. It pauses with the stillness of a mountain and glows with 7 jewels that are made out of nothing but water and light. Soon it will vanish.
Thank you. John Valzer is a standard bred horse trainer and is one of Ann's sons-in-law. He and Liz were blessed by the presence of Ann in their home for almost 10 years.
I feel honored to read these poems that have not yet been published. And this particular poem doesn't have a title. Liz actually found it amongst Ann's papers. When Jesus had completed his fearful passion, nothing could stay the same. Darkness covered the sun. The long dead saints were walking. And we were forgiven. We were forgiven everything. And this is another gem entitled Mozart. Although he died 200 years ago, Mozart can be heard singing in the kitchen of the apartment over the florist shop where a young widow lives. And this is a poem written for the Whelan family, who was great friends of Anne. For Duane and Mary. Mist fills the meadow over the lake. The filmy air is white. It's morning, and the heavy drops of dew and gossamer threads caught in the cedar tops have just begun to sparkle. And I remember that my friend is dying. One of his children told me last night, and as she told me, I became aware of a profoundly healing shadow that had come over me and now was all around me. Only my heart perceived it, and I could not fully understand it. I only knew that it had to come to me from the deep faith and kindness of my dying friend. And it remained with me and it so strongly sheltered me that I myself was no longer afraid to die. And the final poem is entitled Possible. Up from the stubble in the field, you toss the lark into the sky where he becomes a song. Even our stunted, mired, and broken spirits will fly up with the lark or rise up singing, for with you nothing is impossible.
Thank you. Catherine Koch is a painter and a writer, and she is the daughter of the late Kenneth Koch, a poet.
Hi. Hi, Alvin. How are you? My parents, Kenneth and Janice Koch, were very lucky to be very close to Anne and Fairfield. And when their daughter Liz was born, I was 9 months old, and we came to stay. And Liz and I became best friends sometime after that, when we were both more aware of the world and each other. And I was so lucky because we lived in New York City and reporters lived in Southampton. And since Liz was my best friend, I got to spend vacations out here and also in Maine in the summers. And one thing that I was thinking about is that I would come and visit always around this time of year because it was spring vacation. And it was also around Lizzie's birthday, which is April 1st. And it was always around Easter, which was a great holiday to be reporters for. And I'm going to read a couple of poems that are spring poems, since we've been through rather a long, hard winter. And then I'm going to read something that Liz gave me to read, which is very funny. This poem is called The First of May. Now the smallest creatures who do not know they have names, in fields of pure sunshine, open themselves and sing. All over the marshes and in the wet meadows, wherever there is water, the companies of peepers who cannot count their numbers gather with sweet shouting, and the flowers of the woods who cannot see each other appear in perfect likeness of one another among the weak new shadows on the mossy places. Now the smallest creatures who know themselves by heart, with all their tender might and roundness of delight, spending their colors, their myriads, and their voices, praise the moist ground and every winking leaf, and the new sun that smells of the new streams. So that was the 1st of May, and now I'm going to read a poem that's about the last part of May and the first part of June, and it's called For the Two Catherines. And the two Catherines are, first of all, Catherine Porter, Liz's older sister, who couldn't be here, Josh's mother. And her birthday, I think, is the 20th of May, yes? And the second Catherine is me, and my birthday is in the first part of June. So, for the two Catherines. On the last days of May and the first days of June, we walked through the clear green shadows of the horse chestnut trees when they were all in flower. The buds were shedding their husks, shiny and brown as the pastries in the bake shop window, and shaped like beetles' wings. They were lying all over the sidewalk and they stuck to our shoes. It's near the Feast of Pentecost, and always at this season, the horse chestnut trees keep their own festival, whose calendar is hidden in the depths of the sun. All around the parks and all through the villages, under sun and moon and falling rain, they hold up by the hundreds their torches heaped with flowers. High in the chestnut trees, the blossoms on their spindles appear a woolly white. But when I was a child and found some of the blossoms loosened, fallen, and caught in the grass, their threads of gold astonished me, and every flower was signed with 4 small spots of crimson that filled me with a mysterious joy. And Liz asked me if I would read something called Animal Thrift Shop. What Liz said about these small poems is, Mom would just say these verses. They were throwaways, sometimes while waiting for a doctor's appointment, in between times, unexpectedly, and I started writing them down. This was in the last couple of years of Anne's life. Every now and then, she would suddenly recite another one. They came out of nowhere. In this poem, there's a mention of Beatrix Potter. Anne, I think, felt a real connection to Beatrix Potter, not just because of her illustrations and her books for children, but also because Beatrix Potter was a great naturalist. She was an artist, a botanical artist, and she also, in England, was responsible for saving the countryside around her in perpetuity. And Anne and Fairfield were both very interested in environmental issues and preserving the land. Okay, so here's Animal Thrift Shop. I volunteer at the You Name It shop, a thrift shop founded by Miss Jane McCork, whose life I'll honor in a later work, where animals can express their love for finery and fancy dress, where every woodchuck, pony, bat, and otter can be dressed up as if by Beatrix Potter. I'm very happy I could find the bees some little multi-legged dungarees. The snake bought one silk stocking, and I guess she wears it as a dress. Oh dear, here come the ants. I never have their size in flannel pants. Somebody wants a waistcoat for a trout. The one we have won't do. The man who brought it in was much too stout. You should have seen Denise in that red cape. She was one happy ape. The little rabbit left the shop in tears. She couldn't find a hat with holes for ears. It took the snail half an hour to crawl out to the full-length mirror in the hall, where she tried on a tiny wedding veil. It was on sale. The local bishop gave us his mitre. The rooster wanted it. We made it tighter. Do you know how the birds want everything to match? That's going to be difficult when the ducklings hatch. I had to tell the walrus to his face, don't buy that yard of lace. For clothes that are too frilly make walruses look silly. But sometimes we indulge our clients' folly. I've sold a ball gown to a border collie. A whale in overalls? The very thought appalls. Perhaps it wouldn't hurt to try a muumuu or our biggest shirt. I think the hen will like this purple bonnet. It has some ribbons and some flowers on it. Hens like to look their best when sitting on the nest. There is one customer who makes me laugh when he buys neckties for his pet giraffe. This is a problem. It is really tough, for even 20 ties are not enough. We're open several nights a week. It has to be that way. Some of our finest customers are fast asleep all day.
This is a book waiting for a publisher and a great illustrator, really. After Liz reads, we invite you to a reception which is provided both by the family and by the library. I wanted to mention that there are also some copies, not a lot, but some copies of Anne's books over on that side of the room. And we'll end this wonderful reading with Liz, one of Anne's daughters. Thank you, Liz. Who is a social worker, by the way.
I want to say thank
thank you to everybody for coming. It's really, what a beautiful moment, you know. And I feel like Anne is here. She's with us. This poem is a little more serious. It's called A Safe Neighborhood. Shopkeepers, bankers, poets, contractors, watering quiet lawns, and sleeping in heated houses. If even here, some ordinary grief can knife our hearts down to the very quick. How is it for those others? Famine is their nourishment, rubble of war their garden, freezing wind their home. And since we began with Francis, I thought it'd be appropriate to end with Francis. This is a beautiful poem that Anne wrote, Song for the Town of Assisi. And she begins with a quote from an old Spanish carol. Why is this little city not like any other, not like any other? Holy and steep and radiant Assisi, I know now that on this side of paradise, I'll never visit you. I'll never make that journey. I'll never see you except in pictures. I'll never hear your bells or see your cobbled streets, the walls that Giotto painted, or the houses of Francis and Clare. I never will look down on the Spoleto Valley, your deep plunging valley that's beautiful even in pictures. And you, Francis tunic, reproach and treasure, brown homespun tunic, patched all over, I'll never see you except in pictures. And I know now I'll never climb that high wooded mountain where Francis had his cave. On one September night, beside that very cave, the 5 wounds of the Passion pierced him through and through. And even now, his every wound is singing. I wonder what birds are nesting on Mount Alverna now, what flowers are growing there, what kinds of trees. Hill town, ancient town, town where I'm a foreigner, small city, walled city, unlike any other, my chosen city, festive Assisi, reproach and treasure, hoarding nothing, storing up nothing. You welcome lepers and dine with them, and where your shadow falls, the wolf grows gentle. How long must I live far away from you, both outwardly and inwardly, so far away? I've never even learned your language, and I know now I'll never see you, never visit you, this side of the Jordan, the River Jordan. But I will surely find you on the other side of the river. Francis, blind and bleeding, Francis, bleeding and singing, will have translated you to the other side of the river, cobble by cobble, stone by stone, and I will find you there. I'll surely find you there, holy and steep and radiant Assisi. I'll surely find you there, free of all coveting, festive Assisi, where lepers are welcome, where the poor are honored, where the wolf grows gentle. I know I'll surely find you beyond the river, beyond the Jordan River, beyond the black, the terrible, the blessed river. And this last poem is everybody's favorite, House Guests. All of us are coming. No, they are not coming. They may be coming, they may not be coming. 4 of them are coming, that is, if they are coming. 5 will come on Friday, 3 will leave on Sunday, 2 will come back Tuesday, that is, if they are coming. If they were coming, 2 of them would be coming, but they are not coming. 6 of them are coming. Thank you.